That's great. Well, hello everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this sort of little run through post my visit to Wangi last month. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes to just let everybody join. Thanks very much for taking the time, really appreciate it. And I'm working on the basis that most of you know a little bit about Imvelo, a little bit about Wangi, so I'm going to really focus on the highlights for me and also the changes and sort of important things for you to be aware of, rather than necessarily the detail of how many rooms at the lodge, etc., etc. So going to try and sort of keep it light and bright. And then Lucy's going to keep an eye on the Q&A, and we'll have a look on the end, but maybe just sort of add anything within the Q&A or the chat. I never know which one it is, Lucy.
Can I suggest the Q&A, please?
Okay.
Put them all in there rather than the chat. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's great. And then we'll cover anything at the end. And of course, if anybody wants to have a really deep dive, we're here. I'm very happy to do that on an individual basis as well. So without further ado, I think I will start. So yes, Imvelo, very much the Wangi experts. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. Yeah. So, you know, now with 5 lodges in Wangi, we had a superb trip. There were 6 of us, and we visited all the different lodges and tried to undertake as many of the experiences as we possibly can. Yeah, here's a few notes about our trip. That was a great picture that, well, I think it's a nice picture of me, obviously, that Butch took of me looking at the elephant out of one of our look-up hides. So that's a fun way to start. So just a little bit about Zimbabwe. I think their international flight connections have really improved. I put this picture up here just so that people are aware. Obviously, the majority of our guests fly in via Victoria Falls, but we are seeing more now with Harare and obviously with Qatar and Emirates restarting. We see that as a good route in, and then there's all these rumour mongering about Air Zimbabwe starting up new flights to Harare as well. So we will watch that space. And then coming into Wangi, we really feel that sort of, you know, Wangi's coming into its own area. And from a seasonal point of view, the dry season usually runs from May through to October, and then the wet season sort of starts to build in November, mid-November through to March. This year was a very different year, like it has been for a lot of places around the world. And the El Nino certainly had a really big impact. They ended up having 40 inches of rain, and there were rivers flowing in Wangi that have not flowed for 40 years in Butch's lifetime. He couldn't remember them ever seeing them flow before. So that'll give you a feel for how much rain they had. And it was relatively late season as well. So it meant that June this year was a bit of an odd year. Certainly the pans were still full of water. The wildlife was looking really healthy and very happy, from all the predators to the elephant to the plains game, and was very spread out, as you would expect. So so a little bit different to what's normally we would expect to experience. But having said that, normally the year that follows is looking to be a big drought year, which isn't so good, but it will potentially mean that May, June, July next year will be an exceptional year. So something to bear in mind, really. So I've just sort of put this in here as a sort of like an awareness of where our camps are. As you probably know, Victoria Falls, and then we have 5 camps in Wangi. Nehimba in the north, which is in its own private conservancy, actually the largest conservancy in the park. We have Bomani just outside in its own concession. Camelthorn, which is our lodge situated on community land, and something that I learned, it is the only lodge on community land anywhere in Wangi and Victoria Falls. So we're very proud of that fact. So that's Camelthorn here on community land. And then recently opened Tum Tum here. It's actually inside the park, in a beautiful area, really stunning area of teak and camelthorn woodland. And then last but not least, Jozibanini, which is our wild camp right in the wilds of Wangi. It's about 6 hours from the nearest settlement people of the camp, and a very special place for those people that would like to escape. So there are camps. The Elephant Express runs from Det through to Ngamo, and there's a few little updates about that coming. And then just a very quick reminder, why go to Wangi in the first place? So 4th largest park in Africa, with the largest mammal and avian diversity in Zimbabwe. So, you know, that's something to be said. So low density of camps. We're actually larger than Serengeti. Again, something that I learned. I've always said that we were similar in size, but actually the Serengeti usually is quoted including all of its conservancies. So as a pure national park versus a game reserve, because obviously Serengeti is a game reserve, we are actually larger. And look at that, 300,000 visitors to Serengeti and about 50,000 to Wangi per year. So that'll give you a feel for the numbers. Obviously, numbers of camps, I think there are 15, 20 in Wangi, something like that. And the Serengeti, I don't know, 90 plus. Having said that, I do promote the Serengeti too. It's a wonderful destination, but just giving you the reasons why you would consider Wangi for your guests. One of the other things they talk about is the highest elephant densities in Africa. And obviously everyone talks about Chobe, and obviously Chobe does have the most phenomenal elephant experiences, but also 450,000 visitors per year. So a slightly different scenario. So for a fantastic elephant experience with fewer people, then Wangi is a great option. Has some of the largest lion densities. They have 700 adults, so they don't include the sub-adults in that. And 12 packs of wild dogs. There's only 1 pack, I understand, in the Mana area. So it will give you a feel for this extraordinary wildlife. There's eland, we saw eland, there's roan, sable, some extraordinary plains games as well. Some of our best sightings were actually things like secretary birds and bustards, and we saw pelicans, some really phenomenal bird life as well. So obviously we have the rhino, which we've introduced, which is very exciting. And the last but not least is we are the original national park within Kaza. So you could say that Wangi is the mother of the Kaza area. So something to sort of bear in mind. So yes, a lot of people still talking about driving versus flying. We flew. Without a doubt made an enormous difference. Mac Air, this is a picture of these, a lot of these pictures on here, I should say, are my own personal photos, so you'll have to excuse some of the angles and so on. I'm not a professional photographer, but I wanted to give a sort of a reality check to what it's all about. So the Mac Air Lounge in Victoria Falls Airport is air conditioned. It has drinks, it has coffee, it's got a few beers, great place to lounge around, it's got Wi-Fi. So really nice and very straightforward check-in system. Our luggage was taken from the vehicle straight into the lounge and then taken straight onto the plane. So all very smooth, worked really well. And then the same in reverse. Something that I wasn't as aware of is on the reverse, you can use the lounge if you have an hour or two back at Victoria Falls Airport before you're connecting on for an international flight. So something to bear in mind and a real bonus, I feel. If people have luggage that is too big and they're quite strict on their soft luggage going into the planes, they will offer your guests a storage option, and they do offer a little bag that you can repack and take and so on. So they do have most eventualities covered. So our first stop on this trip was to Shumbe, which is the local airstrip for Nehimba. It's about 25 minutes from camp, but obviously as we touched down, we went straight on game drive, as you would expect. We saw lions within probably about an hour of landing, which was a really special moment, and then sort of made our way back to camp and arrived in time for lunch. So a very easy option. We were having breakfast, looking at Victoria Falls in the morning. By lunchtime, we were at Nehimba, looking at the phenomenal view of the waterhole in front. And then by evening, we were having sundowners on the seats. I mean, you know, really straightforward safari Victoria Falls combination, and something to sort of keep in mind. So I've put in a pricing there. They're all rack rates. The idea is that you get a feel for how much each of the camps are. And also don't forget that Wangi National Park fees are about $20 per person per day. So, you know, really relatively low costs and so on. But I will come back to costs again later, but it just gives you a feel for it. So Nehimba is around this wonderful waterhole, and I will tell you that the water was a lot higher than that when we were there. You can see here, this is the waterhole in front of Lodge, it's a picture I took. And here, this is up at Nehimba Seeps. So for all of you that have been to Nehimba Seeps with me before, I don't think I've ever seen a waterhole pumped up there. Quite extraordinary to see, lots of hippo, lots of bird life, elephant coming in to drink. You know, really extraordinary to see those seeps in full flow. And this is not pump water, this was just groundwater in June. Really unusual year, but very beautiful, really rather beautiful. This was our welcome team. This is Daniel and Nisha, who are the general managers up at Nehimba. Daniel comes from an engineering background, so he's done an extraordinary amount of work with the water and all kinds of back of house stuff. So everything's working really, really well at Nehimba. And Nisha's just a wonderful host. And of course, you know, we were welcomed with a lovely drink, and you can see how high that water is behind us here. So really lovely to see the wildlife coming into that waterhole whilst we stayed. The lodge, as you know, had a refurb a couple of years ago, so I have put in a couple of the photos so that you know how fresh and good it's looking. They've got tea and coffee stations in every room now, and also a small fridge with cokes and beers or whatever you might fancy, and some big bottles of iced water as well. So really everything now is in the room so that you can enjoy it. And, you know, if you want to, you can just stay in your room and be overlooking that waterhole, which is so special. Here we did have an elephant come to visit at dinner time. You can see me looking out there rather wrapped up. It was very chilly. It was classic June weather. Really lovely and warm during the day, but chilly at night, but not too bad. And then I just wanted, I put this photo in here of dinner at Nehimba. The main reason I wanted to do that is one of the feedback things that I've received from every single person on this trip is how extraordinary the food was. The food has been so elevated at Nehimba. We had a lady who was gluten-free and absolutely everything we had. So if we had carrot cake, she had her own little carrot cake that was gluten-free. At Sundowners, she would have her own portions of gluten-free. Everything was kept separate. There was no cross-contamination. She was given different options, or more or less the same, but a gluten-free option at every single meal. So from a dietary perspective, I think they absolutely nailed it. And also the food was delicious. Had several requests for recipes and so on and so forth. So really, you know, the food has been elevated to a great extent now at all of the camps. This is not just Nehimba, that's just happened to be what I was going to talk about. And then, of course, have a few sundowners. Always a pleasure on safari. This was literally, so we'd been at the falls in the morning, we'd had breakfast on Vic Falls Hotel on their terrace, looked at the falls as the sun came up, and this was our sundowner that night. So a full bar, lovely treat, surprise. You know, it's such a special place to have sundowners up on those seats, and you can see the water behind as well. Obviously, we're on our own conservancy, so we can do some walks, and this was us going out walking, looking into elephant, but being, you know, very well guided, as you would expect, by guides with an extraordinary amount of experience, and walking, a specialist walking safari guide as well. The wildlife remained very excellent whilst we were up there, as I said. So we saw these lions very much looking at us. There's a gorgeous elephant in mirror pictured, and then this was a lovely lunch spot that we stopped at, as they, you know, they also do whenever you're staying with us as Imvelo, you'll always get one, whether it's a breakfast or a lunch, out in the bush during your stay. That's sort of like a standard thing now that you will experience while you're staying with us. So this was the experience we'd hoped for. As I said, it wasn't to be this year. We just had an enormous amount of water, so the elephants were much more spread out. We did have one elephant come in to drink from the water hole, and interestingly enough, one of the agents said that it was her most commented post. So it is still an amazing experience, but you don't have those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds crowding into the water hole, and they think that that's probably happening now, but next year certainly it'll be earlier in the season. It's just one of those extraordinary years. So the Elephant Express, we've had quite a few people asking us about what's happening with the Elephant Express. And originally it was set up to help with the transfers from Victoria Falls. We had people coming quite a long way to get down to the Southern Plains and the Ngamo area. And we thought what a fantastic and fun thing it would be to have a little railway, use the railway line that runs along the edge of the park. And we created the Elephant Express. What we're finding now is, I would say 99% of our guests are flying in. So therefore the Elephant Express is really is having to change how it works. So that's why we've changed it to a sundowner type of experience. So when you're staying at Bomani and Camelthorn, you can go out for 2.5 hours and have a sort of lovely sundowner or a little scenic journey from Ngamo, which is where the majority of the wildlife is, I should add as well. And you can have that wonderful experience. This photo was taken whilst we were on the train. Butch managed to capture it. So it was a really special moment to see these lions. There was a pride of about 17 just wandering over the railway line. So it really does happen. It really does. It's priced actually cheaper than the original transfer price as well. So it's $115 per person based on a minimum of 2 people. So very easy to sell. And we know that it's a real favourite, a guest favourite. People absolutely love it. And it's such an extraordinary way to see wildlife that I would still 100% recommend it. If people still want to do the private journey from Det to Ngamo or vice versa, happy to lay it on. It'll be on a private basis, and it's a minimum of 6 people, but quite happily you can just multiply that out if you have people who are really keen to do it. It's so it's still very much operational. I think the sundowner is the way to go personally. So this is us arriving. You can see this is the Elephant Express arriving into Det Station. We were there waiting for it, only been there a few minutes, but fun to see it arrive. And then we sat and we had lunch before we set off. Obviously, you don't want pieces of lettuce leaf flying around. And there's Kirsty enjoying her beer as well, and us too. I should have put a picture of me, but I did enjoy a beer too. So we came from Nehimba, went up to Det, came down on the Elephant Express, and our first stop was at Bomani on the Ngamo Plains. Still this beautiful wide open area, one of our favourite lodges. It's probably our bestseller from a good price point of view, but also it just has a charm of its own. The rooms were looking fresh, really beautiful. We have 4 room types there. These are the saddle bills. We have the spur wings on the ground, and then we have the family suite. And last but not least, this is our thatched bungalow, which has been redone this year and is looking really fresh. So there's only one of these. It is a family room. They have bunk beds in as well. But the really, really important thing that I think everyone should note is that it will be air conditioned. Something to think about in those October heated months. So something to bear in mind. Looking really fantastic. It's a lovely room, and it is the closest room to the guest areas as well. So works well for people who might struggle with the heat, etc. So there's the Bomani crew. That's Big Boy. I'm sure many of you have met Big Boy over the years. And there's Danny, just in case he looks like a Big Boy 2 or a Big Boy number 1 or whatever. Really fabulous crew at Bomani, sitting around, having breakfast around the campfire. There's something special about Bomani. It just has a really lovely feel to it. But of course, the wonderful thing here as well is this was the mother. This was one of the first times she'd shown her cubs off. So they're probably 2 or 3 months old. Really, really amazing. Extraordinary herds of buffalo. seen. As I said, we saw pelicans here, really phenomenal. This is Stoffy's Pan, which is where our little look-up is, close to Bomani and Camelthorn, accessed by both camps. We didn't actually come here, we waited until we were further along, but I just wanted to remind you that it is an optional and a great experience to have whilst you're staying at Bomani or Camelthorn too. So then moved on to Camelthorn for a night, as I mentioned. So Camelthorn is the only lodge in Wangi or in Vic Falls that is on community land. So it's very much run by the women of the community primarily, actually, at Camelthorn. Sibo, who's the usual general manager, was just on maternity leave. She's just had a little baby. And Viola was looking after everything. I absolutely love Viola. So they are going to be a power team. And between them, they are doing a phenomenal job at Camelthorn. I'm very proud of their community lodge. It's got a great team of people here. This was a picture I took. I just wanted to sort of show you how fresh it's looking. It's really amazing. And now we have plunge pools in all of the rooms. We have 4 at ground level. You can see the rhino obviously still wandering through lodge. And then we have 4 at top level as well, upstairs. So something to bear in mind if you have people who, maybe don't manage stairs quite so well, is to maybe request one of the rooms with a ground level one would be a good request to make. And there's always a lovely fireplace there. It's a great one to sit around. And then we have our beautiful Camelthorn tree, one of the oldest Camelthorns in the area, and the rhinos still wander through. Sadly, they didn't whilst we were there. They were very close by, but they decided they turned away and went back. I think it's probably, there was so much grass, there was so much to eat everywhere around us. So another one of those, that there was a lot of water and a lot of food to be had in plenty of areas. And it just shows we don't train them to come into camp. They very much do it under their own steam. So these were our first 2 rhino, Tusa and Kusasa. I wanted to just sort of show you very quickly a little bit more about the rhino whilst we were there. So this is where Camelthorn is, and the Ngamo sanctuary up here. You can see the size of the sanctuary. Imvelo is extraordinarily bigger. It's much, much bigger. So that is our second opened one, where we have 2 more rhinos. So we've got 4 at the moment. Number 2A is possibly a similar size to Ngamo, and that is we have 2 more rhino arriving in a couple of weeks' time, which is very exciting. And then you can see the red area will be our next sanctuary, and there's already an enormous amount of work. It's practically ready, and so that'll be opening in the coming months and years as well. So we've really got this extraordinary area and buffer zone that is community owned. They own the rhino. So these rhino are owned by the community. They're not owned by Imvelo. They're not owned by private people. They're not in national parks or on private land. It's a pure community project. And so, the monies that we raise, so we charge, I think it's 220 for 2027. The monies we raise by charging people, by charging people an entry fee, and that's just once per visit, that money goes straight to the community. That money either via funding, so we're raising money for the community, or via people that are employed from the community. And there's just a small amount that's kept back by Imvelo, well, it's actually by the CRCI, that sort of pays for rifles and electric fencing and that kind of thing. So it's not a money-making thing for Imvelo. It is very much about supporting the community to see the benefits and understand and bring rhino back to Wangi, but with the benefits that go thereafter. Oh, so no, it's not. Yeah, there we are. So I've put in a few little facts here. So 2,000 school children have visited, nearly 4,500 international tourists, over $200,000 in revenue. That's an extraordinary amount of money in these very rural, very poor areas. It's just making so much difference. The clinic there has medicines. It's got a team of people. People are coming from miles to visit the Ngamo clinic. They've treated over 10,000 patients. I mean, just amazing. all as a result of these rhino. So, you know, we have 54 scouts now, and that's including 3 women who have a slightly different role to the men, but are as capable and as are powerful and totally able to look after and protect these rhino as well. So it's such a respected job. You see the kids, you know, they're practicing being cobras. The cheetah women are really being looked up to by the females, by the girls in the school, and so on and so forth. So it's a very exciting project and something we're very, very proud of. I've just put this in here. I mean, this was the poaching. This was just sort of low-level poaching that was happening in the area. When they were first clearing it, these were all the snares that they found. And there's very little poaching now. They've, you know, I think there's been 1 elephant in 10 years or something, whereas there used to be 3 or 4 every few months. So it's made an enormous difference to that understanding and that community wildlife, you know, working together. So really fun. So yes, of course, we went to visit them, as you'd expect. We went to see the 2 up at Ngamo, and then as we travelled south through to Tum Tum, we went to the Imvelo, the new sanctuary that's open as well. So that was very interesting. And whilst I was there, I interviewed Propitious. This is Propitious, who is one of the new women cheetah female scouts. And their role is to be out in the community, chatting to what's happening. You know, hate to admit it, but women tend to sort of chat and find out what's going on in the area. And they're the eyes and the ears on the ground to really understand what's going on. But she's a real powerhouse. She's 21 years old. She's so excited to have this role, and she wants to be a leader. And I did a whole interview with her. So if you're interested to listen to that interview, please let us know and we'll share it with you. So Ngamo, I was quite surprised. It's really changed. What a sophisticated place now. It's got a supermarket. It's got a bar. The football club is really thriving. The schools are doing incredibly well. So whilst we still encourage and love people visiting Ngamo, and what we always say is we come and do with, not look at, so walk to school with the kids, come and visit with the head man. Obviously shopping is a great way of community upliftment, and then sort of come in and do a little bit of a role play in school or join an assembly. We're very careful not to impact people to the children now in school. So that's sort of something we've learnt along the way. So we're still very much involved, but you can see the impact that tourism has had on Ngamo, which is quite extraordinary. It really is. This is the soccer academy. So a great one for teenagers visiting. Come and play some soccer with these kids. They absolutely love it. And sort of like, and has made a real impact. So there's a girls' teams as well as boys. So very exciting at Ngamo. But, you know, we need to spread that love and support. So, you know, 600,000 school meals given to 17 different schools. And I think, you know, it's not just about those Ngamo schools. We've got to spread that love that whole way around the Wangi National Park border. This was us giving some kids a ride to school. They walk 10 kilometres at the moment to school. And these are little ones. Look at his smile, absolutely proud. And this was a cobra hat. He was so proud to be wearing that hat. But, you know, this is a borehole that they're actually pumping by hand. So at Ngamo, they're all solar. As you move further out, it's much more by hand, and it's, you know, donkey and cart. It's a much simpler way of life. So I think Imvelo is very much getting involved with spreading that love further than just the Ngamo area. And obviously our Smile and See, I think most people know about that. We're now doing tens of thousands of operations, looking after eyes, looking after teeth. And it's an extraordinary story by itself, really, that happens every November. We went to one of my stand-up moments was going to this community. So this is Muchayeli community, where they started with just one form 3 years ago. There's 5 women here. This is the head teacher. And they wanted to start a senior school. There was only a junior school in the area. So they've literally got a piece of land. They've created this little school. It's gone from Form 1 to Form 3. It'll go to Form 4 next year as these kids are getting older. 2/3 of them are women, are girls. So what great role models these guys are being. They've got very, very little. You can see they're sitting under a tree. There's no classrooms. There's a couple of tents. And it's freezing cold. You know, we're all in warm jackets and these kids are sitting outside. It's just extraordinary, but very proud still, really achieving, and just amazing to sort of understand what they can do off their own back. But of course, the more tourists we can bring, the more support they're getting. I think there's a guy that's going to support and try and build some classroom blocks for them very shortly. So that's exciting. And this last little bit is a tiny little clip. And I don't know, you can't see that very well. It's turned the other way. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, it's 2 girls that are polished. They've just walked to school and they polished their shoes before they've joined assembly. And I thought that said everything about the respect that they had for their teachers and their school and how grateful they are to be there. I thought it said a lot. So then we moved on to Tum Tum. Very exciting, beautiful area. We drove down and we stayed outside the park to sort of get a feel for the changes in the community and what happens as you go further along. And then we drove back into Tum Tum Treehouses. So we spent a day doing that and went to the rhino sanctuary as well here. But very easily you could drive inside the park and just sort of come straight down. That's about an hour and a half from Bomani or Camelthorn to Tum Tum, just so that you know. And in terms of access, we're currently using the Linquasha airstrip, which is about 45 minutes north of Tum Tum as well. So just from a flying point of view, that's our nearest airstrip. Obviously, Bomani and Camelthorn have their own, which is about 10 minutes from camp, so it's very easy. But Tum Tum, we're using Linquasha. So from Tum Tum, you go out to these new communities. So we did that journey to school, picking up some kids along the way, and that was driving. We picked them up about just outside the park gate, about 10 kilometres from school. So driving to those more rural communities where you can have a big impact. But Tum Tum is inside the park. This is a little video. I don't know if many of you have seen it, but it's such a beautiful, it gives a feel for how special this place is. For me, it was much, they are high, but they looked even higher when you're there. And a few people have asked, what about getting up and down the steps? Actually, some of them have, you know, got little rest areas the way you could stop and start. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is a treehouse. And as a result, the rooms are slightly different in size. As you could imagine, it's going to be, you know, it's sort of slightly different because of where the trees were located, and they obviously wanted to use really ancient trees, and they didn't want to impact the trees, and they had to look at the positioning of the trees. So the rooms are all slightly different, and we can do a deep dive if anybody wants to. That's very easy. So here they are. So Firefinch and Crombeck are twins, Goshawk and Babbler are kings, and then we have our family tent. This is the main lodge, you know, and everyone says, well, why have you put the pool here? Well, you try and find a pool, an area for a pool from a tree house with a whole load of tree houses. Very difficult to hide. So we decided we'd go with it, and then they have amazing views of the waterholes and this little rock pool. We are probably going to put in a few more rock pools further along, but it's looking fabulous. This was the guest area, and I just took a little video. That's Alice, who's looking after guests there. She's also a masseur as well. So that's a really nice added extra here for Tum Tum. These are the guest areas. And you can see what happened. We arrived, we dumped all our bags, and then everybody went straight out and looked at the elephant, and we lost everybody at that point. It's set up for lunch, so we were having lunch out on the deck. And you know, sort of elephants, you can just about see them out there, and then you can see the waterhole far away. So the elephants were wallowing here for much of the time when we were there. It's a really special spot. We're finding that people tend to use Tum Tum. They're going out for about an hour sorry, you're going out early morning and spending quite a lot of time out in the morning, and then coming back, having a late lunch and a lazy afternoon. And quite often people don't want to go out again because there's so much activity happening in and around the lodge. So something that we're looking at, and we're feeling, you know, finding our way as we go. But this is Babla. It's one of the quietest of the rooms. It's there out on the left for people that remembered the map. And then this is Crombeck, I believe. And you can see that's got this lovely view straight out over the waterhole. Really special spot. This is the family suite. It's freshly taken last week. They've put up railings. And we've got all the new furniture in. It's about 1.5 times bigger than the one at Sable, the Sable suite at Bomani, just for anybody who's been there. So it's a bigger version of the similar idea. It has outdoor showers, indoor baths, and bathrooms. They're both en suite, and they have fans and mosquito nets, as you would expect from any of our rooms. And then I put this in here. This was we'd set up. This was a lovely. I just want to give a feel for the area. So it's this beautiful teak and Camelthorn wooded area, really stunning and so different from anywhere else that I'd been in Wangi. We sat under a tree. We'd had a lovely long walk before we came to a surprise bush lunch. It's always special. And then this is Mandi Sekapan, where we've put a look up for that sort of up close special experience. So this will be a really lovely one for sundowners. Really nice place to spend an hour or so of the evening. And then obviously we have our rhino experience as well that you can do for Tum Tum, and you can do all of those community things as well. So then last but not least was Jozi. So some big changes at Jozi, and I think it's going to change the way that it's sellable. It's always been 5 rooms around looking out over that waterhole, always phenomenal elephant activity, and we really did have phenomenal elephant activity even in June, with pushing and shoving and babies and I don't know what else in front of the lookup, which was amazing. But they put up this lovely new tent, which is our guest area here. Looks out over that pan. The pan's just behind that little bush here. A nice place for tea, as you can see, but obviously of an evening, and it was chilly whilst we were there. The campfire drew us in, and we tended to eat still out under the stars. So you've got the best of both worlds now. So it's still wild, it's still remote, it's still beautiful. It has a special place in my heart. It does something to my soul, Jozi. There's something about being in the middle of nowhere, in a very simple place. It's a very special spot. But they've redone the tents. So they put chargers, night lights, all the linen. So they've had a bit of a refurb. It's looking fresh. It's looking great. And I think, you know, from what it used to be about sending the right people here, we still want the right people here. We want those adventurous people, but it is certainly more like a full-blown lodge now, and I think you can sell it with complete confidence. Works really well for teenagers because you've got the cycling options, you've got the walking. We went, so this is us in the lookup. Obviously, got to have a gin and tonic or two in the lookup. We went in search of the baobabs. No one knows why there are baobabs in Wangi. There shouldn't be. It's not the right. Topographically, it's not correct really to have them there, but there are about 12 these enormous ancient baobabs. So there's all kinds of things you can do, and you are not going to see another soul down there. It really is in the remotest part of Wangi. And then for me, Jozi is about looking at the stars. There's shooting star spotting, sitting around the campfire. This was a breakfast shot, but all, you know, sharing stories. It's just does something to your soul and your heart, Jozi. It's a very special place. Obviously, a few pictures of some up close and elephants, and yeah, we had a lot of fun whilst we were there. It was a great trip. So just a few bits to finish off. Green season packages. So we've put 2026 and 2027. We have our Stay 6 Pay 5. The no single supplement and a free private guide. Kids stay free, and don't forget we consider children 16 and under. That's obviously over our green season, but bear in mind that for families, we only charge 30% in high season. I put those pictures of the wild dog in. So I had a message from Butch 3 or 4 days ago. One agent is there, and she saw 6 wild dogs from the look up at Josie. So that's quite special. At Tum Tum, they reckon the wild dogs come through once a week, roughly. So, I mean, it's obviously still hit and miss, you never know. But, you know, wild dog is very much on the agenda in Wangi. And then last but not least, some high season packages and offers, 2026, 2027. My favourite of them all is the Nehimba and Bomani or Camelthorn or Tum Tum 6-night safari, get a free flight and a free night special. And look, for 2027, that's $5,315. And that's fly from and to Victoria Falls. I think that's quite extraordinary value. It really is. Something to think about. That's a high season package. All of this, obviously, we can share and you'll know more about. Great for families. And just finishing on some of the incredible community stuff that Imvelo facilitates. So yeah, that's it from me. Any questions? Anything come in, Lucy, or are we all good?
No, nothing's coming just yet. No, so you've obviously done such an amazing job. But there's no questions.
Okay, well, that's great.
No.
If anybody's got any questions, you know where we are. Always happy to help. Yeah, and I hope that was helpful. I hope that it sort of gave you a bit more of an impression and what's going on and where you can send guests to. Zimbabwe seems to be having a year this year, and next year is looking good. So we're very excited. We really are. Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks for joining me. And anything else, let us know.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.